Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the home of Family Reese, Family Reese Junior, who are very kindly hosting the shir this evening here in Givat Sofatit, French Hill. That's right, yeah.
That's right.
It's very interesting. The road is called Mavoha Partizani.
Yeah.
That's like,
All the roads that like one.
Yeah, absolutely. This was the area that was 6 day. This was the 6 day war. We used to live here actually, nearby. We used to live in Ramat HaShkol. Yeah, he used to live in Ramat HaShkol. Absolutely. What was that? Yeah, he's living in Ramat HaShkol. Anyway, it's wonderful to be here, Baruch Hashem in Yerushalayim. And for those in London, apologies that that we can't be there live, but we are effectively live, sort of. I mean, we are live, but we're just in a different country. But we're going to learn, as usual, the Ramban Al HaTorah. So let's go straight in. So the Ramban says, just the truth is, just to begin with a very brief, he's a few lines on the Arba Lashona Shel Geula. We know at the beginning of the parasha we have the 4 different expressions of redemption, and the Ramban says, he goes through each one, and you see coming out from the Ramban that it's all to do. The focus very much for the Ramban is the fact that we will be completely free from the subjugation of the nations of the world. These 4 expressions are not simply repetitive. That's the point. You could understand them, but they're just repetitive, and they seem to just different ways of phrasing the same thing. Ramban tells us no. He says like this: Pasuk Vov, Perek Vov, Pasuk Vov. V'tzeisi eschem mitacha sivlos Mitzrayim. Yavtichem, he promised them, sheyotzi osam me'artzom, that he would take them out of their land. They were promised they'd be released from their land. V'yisplu oid covid masom, and they would no longer have to bear the burdens, all their burdens, etc. Vitzalti eschem me'avodosom shelo bohem klal. What does vitzalti mean? They will not be ruled over at all. Yos lahem b'makomom lemas oved. That's a completely different level. That means the first one is no longer Mitzrayim, but you can be in a different country and you can still have to pay tax. Or you can still have to be, you can still have to be subjugated in other ways. So the vitzalti means that they are not ruled over at all. They don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to pay a tax as in a tax of slavery or whatever it is to a ruling power. V'goalti eschem. What does it mean? I will redeem you. Ki yasa b'hem shafatim. He will perform judgments, wonders with them. Ad sheyomru hamitzrayim, until the Mitzrayim will say, Hinei lecha Yisrael b'pidyon nafshenu. This is that they were giving you to yourselves effectively, but pidyon nafshenu, redemption, to redeem ourselves. Kitam gu'elokin and mecha. It's almost as if they are needing to. They're giving them something as a pidyon, as a redemption, right? Geula means like a sale, effectively. That's what he says. So they're in a position where there is not they are so desperate to be relieved of them. They're almost paying them for it as well, to redeem themselves, for the Egyptians to be free of them. And then he says, what is Bizra and Natuya? Okay, then he talks about that means Yodo and Natuya, and the outstretched arm on them until they are actually, Hashem's arm is outstretched until they leave. Means coming, he says, to come to Har Sinai and to receive the Torah. There you will be to me as a segula, as a cherished and treasured people. So the idea being here that these 4 expressions of Geula seem to build one on the other, and they are all getting to the point of complete redemption, complete freedom in every way, and how to define that freedom. Shalom Aleichem. Come inside. We read into the Ramban, but we'll have a time to catch up afterwards. We're joining us from London, so this is like London and Yerushalayim. What better? Kimisian Teitz Torah is what it says, right? Kimisian Teitz Torah. It's Baruch Hashem Yerushalayim, right? There's no better place to teach and learn Torah. So it's supposed to be. Thanks for coming. Okay. So really close. Okay, it's great. Okay, so all right. So the Ramban now says like this. When he talks about the next pasuk Zion, and you will know Ki Ani Hashem Elokeichem. So first he brings he brings a very cryptic Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra seems to understand that this is the knowledge that comes about. What does it mean? Vidatem ki Hashem lekechem. You will know that I am Hashem your God. What does that mean? Vidatem, you will know that I am Hashem. And according to Ibn Ezra, it's because there was a shortening of the shibud, of the slavery that took place. It should have been a lot longer, then it was shortened, and that itself effectively is the proof. You shall know that I am Hashem because I've taken you out when you should really have been there for a lot longer. But the Ramban says, this is not the normal way to understand what the Torah means here. When I redeem you with an outstretched arm, all the people see this. You will know You will know that I am Hashem who performs these wonders. And I'm doing it for you, because you are the portion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what the Ramban is telling us here is that when the rest of the world sees the miracles that transpire and the fact that Hashem takes us out of slavery, that's how there is a revelation. There's a Gilui Shechina. There's a revelation in the world of Hashem's presence. And you will and the fact that the nations see this, that's how you will know that I am Hashem performing this. And that it's all effectively, it's something I'm doing. It all comes from me, Hashem says. So this, it seems to be, according to the Ramban, Vidatem ki ani Hashem Elokecha means that we're talking here about what the ultimate aim of everything is. The freedom itself. What is it for? Vidatem ki ani Hashem Elokecha, so that you shall know that I am Hashem your God. It's a very fascinating thing because people often overlook this. You have these 4 expressions of redemption, right? And then people go straight to the Vahivesi, and I'll bring you into Eretz Yisrael. But there's a line in between there. You shall know that I'm Hashem your God. There's you've got to get to the level of knowing and understanding that we've got to build a relationship with Hashem. So that's what Ramban is, I think, is also that we can also see that in the Ramban here. Now, what does it mean, Mekotze Ruach? Ramban says like this, something that gives us a real insight into what it means when people are in a position of pain. That, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, tell them it's going to be incredible. You're going to leave. It's going to be amazing. The fall of Hashem is good. Everything's going to happen. And what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Pasuk Tes, Vayidaber Moshe keino b'nei Yisrael. Moshe says this to Bnei Yisrael, v'lo shamu el Moshe. And they didn't listen. Mikotze ruach u'me'avoda kosha. From shortness of breath, u'me'avoda kosha, because it was very difficult. The work was so intense. And Rashi explains the kotze ruach is this shortness of breath. Shortness of breath because someone who is in a place of distress, he tends to breathe quickly, right? He doesn't have got time, there's no patience, it's not, it's the opposite of being calm, basically. So the Ramban says, Lo ba'avor, it's a very important Ramban, Lo ba'avor shelo yaminu b'Hashem. At the one hand, you could look at this posuk and you could say, this is like a terrible indictment of the Bnei Yisrael. How can they not believe this? They're going to be free. Hashem says, I'm going to take you out. And it says, V'lo shamu, they didn't listen. Ramban says, not because they didn't believe in Hashem, right? Or b'Naviyai, and in his Novi, in Moshe Rabbeinu. Rak shelo hitzu ozen lidvarov mikotze ruach. But they just didn't, they weren't able to turn their ears towards him. Their ears were closed. Like a person whose soul is short because of his trials and tribulations. And he doesn't want to live one moment in his pain, in the knowledge, or despite the knowledge that it's going to be great afterwards. This is a tremendous insight into psychology the Ramban is telling us here. What is going on? He says you can have a person who is in such Toras, right? That the moment they're in now is so painful for them that it doesn't matter what you promise them. You understand? It doesn't matter what you promise them. It's going to be fine. It's going to be great. You're going to see wonders and miracles, and but they can't take the pain now. They're in the place of pain now. So Ramban says, you see these words? The person can't live one more moment in that place of pain, even though they know that there's going to be freedom afterwards, and they're going to be released, and they're going to see good things in the future. And what is the Kotze Ruach? He goes on to explain that's the fear that Paro shouldn't kill them with the sword, as it says, and the Avodah Kosher is the pressure they're under, right? Because the slavery, the oppression. But I think what we're seeing from the Ramban, come inside, boys. It's all going well here. We've got the Joseph and the Morris here, and real unbelievable. Come take a seat. So I'm just announcing only because the Chevron Zoom here joining the share. But we're well represented here with here Toras Chaim, Yerushalayim. That's a good rhyme. It's great. Okay. Anyway. Okay. So what the Ramban is telling us, I think, here is like this: is that we're just doing Ramban Al HaTorah, which is my standard kind of weekly share, which is the same time. So we're just doing it here in Yerushalayim, and yeah, you understand. But Ramban is saying that you always have to put yourself in the place of the person you're talking to. You have to understand where they are at that moment. It's a tremendous insight into Vaeira Rabbi. Ramban says, don't think that's because they didn't believe. We saw last week's parsha. Yeah? When he did the Osis of Vayamin, they believed. Right? They believed. They said, this is it. They saw. How do they know? He gave the sign. What was the sign? They knew the phrase, the end of Parshat Vayechi. Right? That were those words. Those were the key words. That Hashem says, I've remembered you. And you see these words, they repeated a few times, right? And he comes into the, and he comes there, and he comes to the people. And he comes, what does it say? 1 second. Vayamein ha'am, vayishma'u. Why did they believe? Vayishma'u, they heard. Ki pokad Hashem es bnei Yisrael. Right? Those words pokad, it means, we translate it as to remember, right? A pikodon is a deposit. What are you learning now? Different thing. What are you learning? Okay, fine, right. Okay, but different. You learn Ezekiel. Pikodon, right, is a deposit, right? What does it mean? What we translate it as to remember, right? Hashem pokad es Sarah. Hashem remembered Sarah, right? The HaTorah about Rosh Hashanah, right? When you give a deposit, yeah, the whole point is you remember. That's why you give a deposit, right? You put a deposit down so that it's remembered. You owe me something. I've paid half the price, or whatever. I've given a deposit, or you borrow something. You give you give a deposit, a pikodon, which is what you will then, in case you don't pay back, whatever it is. The word means that it's fixed, it's remembered. And the people saw this, and they believed, because they knew those words were used by Yosef before he was nifta. But his prophet said, I will be there for you, and I will remember you, and it will happen. So what's going on here? Below Shamu, they couldn't listen. The answer is because they believed. But at that moment, they were in such a dark place, because the slavery had become intense, and it was worse, and it was terrible, it was so bad, they just couldn't hear. And that is where you need the tremendous insight and the leadership, right? The koyach, you with me, of a Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Where Moshe Rabbeinu is able to still uplift them. And Hashem encourages him not to give up and to keep leading them. And it will happen. It will happen because they believe. They didn't change, but they just couldn't hear it at that moment, right? Because the pain was too great. So there's something we need to understand. The Ramban gives us an insight just to move forward to Pasuk Yud. He talks about the word Lema. What is this word Lema? Throughout the Torah, you see the word Lema. It's a beautiful Ramban because it gives an insight to many, many Pasukim in the Torah. He brings the Radak because he's going on this word by Yadaber Hashem al Moshe Lema. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, and then it's Boidaber al Paro Melech Mitzrayim. Go and say to Paro Melech Mitzrayim that he has to send the Jewish people out of Egypt, right? So what is this Lema? What is he saying to the Bnei? What is he saying? He said to Moshe Rabbeinu to say Lema. What do you mean? He told Moshe Rabbeinu, go and speak to Paro. What is the Lema? What is the saying? So he brings the Radak, that it always means to say to the Bnei Yisrael. But the Ramban is a different. We're going to skip to the second paragraph. He brings the Radak, and and the Ramban himself has a different explanation. He says like this: Kimilas Lemar lahoros al birur ha'inin b'chol mokem. The word lemar, whenever you see that word lemar, to say in the Torah, lemar, saying, it means that there's clarity. It's something crystal clear. It's something definite, and it's clear, right? Vaidaba Hashem al Moshe ba'amiro gumura, lo ba'amiro musupekes. It's a complete statement. It's a clear statement. It's not something doubtful and something kind of clouded in mystery or whatever. You understand? It's something which is absolutely clear. It's not hinting anything. He says, therefore, and that is why you always see this word used in the Torah. The whole point of Moshe Rabbeinu's nevuah is that it's clear, right? It's clear, it's direct. And therefore, that's why that word is always used. Because Lema, says the Ramban, means clarity. And he says, you see this also elsewhere in the Torah, because Lovon says to Yaakov that Hashem had appeared to him the night before, saying, Lamar, saying, don't harm Yaakov, right? So that's again, what does it mean? He appeared and said, he used the word Lamar. Lavan was saying, Hashem was clear with me, right? Because it means clarity. That's what the word means. That's what the word means. And he brings other examples, another example as well. So that's how it is. So it's just an interesting just to understand why that word is used, because it's used when there's an expression of clarity. Now we're going to move on to Perek Zayin Posuk Gimel. Perek Zayin Posuk Gimel, it's a classic Ramban. What is the Ramban's approach to Paro's hardness of heart, right? We know that all the Mefarshim, go to town on this and understand, because it's an incredibly difficult thing to understand, right? It's very difficult, right? What does it mean? The classic question is, how is it possible that Hashem can harden Paro's heart? Surely free will is the essence of what it means to be a human being. If there's no free will, if Hashem hardens Paro's heart, and where you've removed the Bechira, right? That's the question all the Mefarshim ask. Rashi talks about it, and everyone talks about this problem. Ramban says like this. First thing he says is, he brings the Medrash. This is Perek Zayin Posuk Gimel. And the Medrash says that Hashem is revealing to him that in the future he will harden his heart in order to extract judgment, right? Because of what he did, because of the avodah kosher, because of the terrible subjugation that he did to the Jewish people. And he goes on to bring other elements of the Medrash as well. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Mikan pischin per leminin lo malo choyas mimenu sheyaseh tshuva." Rabbi Yochanan says that this idea of hardening Paro's heart, it actually gives an opening to those who, God forbid, want to express words of heresy and say there was no opportunity for tshuva. So this question really, right? They say, well, it's removed from him. There wasn't an opportunity. It wasn't possible for him to do tshuva. And Reish Lakish responded to Rabbi Yochanan saying, Yisosem piyam shalminin. No, the mouth of the heretics will be sealed, will be closed up. Elaim laleitzim hu yaletz. Brings a pasuk in Mishlei. To those who scoff, those who are leitzonos, Hashem, so to speak, responds in the same way. Masr bo pam rishona shnei shlishis. He warns him the first time, the second time, the third time. Ve'eino chozer bo, and he doesn't do tshuva. Hashem's not giving you so many chances. Hu noel boiteles minat tshuva. And he closes the door from tshuva kedei lifroya mimenu mashachota, to extract retribution for the sin. Kach parei harosha. 5 times, the first 5 makkahs, it doesn't say that Hashem hardened his heart, right? So he sent 5 warnings. I'm giving you 5 chances. And he didn't listen. You have hardened your heart. You made your neck stiff, so to speak. I will add on impurity to your impurity. Because Hashem says, I give chances. I give many, many chances. But then, at the end of the day, if you don't take those chances, then sadly the result can be disastrous. And then the Ramban says like this: what they're trying to explain, he says, Chazal are responding to the question which everyone asks. If Hashem hardened his heart, what did he do wrong? What did he sin? And he says there are 2 reasons. There are 2 answers to this. And they're both true. The first thing is Paro in his wickedness. He did all these terrible things to the Bnei Yisrael for nothing. He should never have done it. It was obligated to withhold from him the ways of tshuva. There are many psukim in the Torah about this. And he was judged according to his original actions. It's a very frightening thing. The idea that the ways of tshuva, there are pathways towards tshuva, there are openings, there are moments of light. That's what tshuva is, right? There are moments when we have this flash of realization, I can do better. And those pathways are closed to Paro. That's the hardening of his heart, right? Those opportunities to see and to say, I don't have to do this. I could do something differently. I can be different, right? I can change. Those pathways are closed because of the position he put himself in. That's the first thing. That's the first reason. But Sheni says the Ramban. The second reason, half of the makkahs were on him because of his sin, because of what he did. Right? It says with the first 5, he hardened his own heart. Nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. It was his own. It was himself. Only afterwards Only afterwards does Hashem harden his heart. He didn't want to send them away for the honor of Hashem. What happens? It becomes too much for him. He now can't cope with the makkos. After the first 5, he can't cope anymore. And therefore, he is weary of the whole thing. He can't bear it anymore. Then, you see, you could understand that Paro has a change of heart after the first 5 makkos. Says Ramban, that's not what's going on at all. After the first 5 makkos, he just can't cope with it anymore. Why does he want to get rid of them? Because he just wants to be free of these terrible afflictions. He doesn't want to do anything. He still doesn't want to do the right thing. And therefore, and then Hashem hardens his heart in order so that Hashem's name is praised as such. As it says, V'skadalti, v'skadesh, v'nodati, le'enei goyim rabim, posuk in Yechezkel, I will be known, etc., etc. Hashem says, my name will be publicized. So this is the idea. The idea being that when it says, V'aniach chazekes libo, it goes on to say, when it says, Hashem says, I will strengthen his heart, he's telling Moshe Rabbeinu what will happen in the future. What will happen? That it's not going to be, he's not going to let you out, and there will be a necessity to harden his heart. So the Ramban is telling us here that he says both of these reasons are emes. Both these reasons are true. They're not contradictory. The reason why Hashem hardens his heart is, number one, because there are certain people who can be put themselves in a place where the punishment is that the path of tshuva is withheld, which is a frightening thing. But they put themselves in such a bad place where they can't get there. They can't get to the way of tshuva. Maybe at some level, you still got to answer how, whether does that mean it's impossible completely? Does that mean there's nothing at all, right? Right? There's a famous Gemara Rabbi Ben Dorji, you probably heard this story before, who lived a terribly morally corrupt life, the Gemara says, and he went and he realized at some point just how bad his life was. And he went up on a mountain and he cries his heart. He asked the mountains to dump him, and he asked the valleys down, everything. And they say, what do you mean? We've got to worry about ourselves. We can't help you. And eventually he realizes, Ein hadova tolu elobi. And he realizes that it's completely, he finally realizes no one can help him, and he has to help himself. And he calls up into a pool, and explain that it means like he's gone back to being a baby. So he curls up like into a fetal position, and he cries out, and he says, and that's when he actually passes away. He expires in that moment. And I think there was a bas kol that he goes to Olam Haba. There's a whole story in the Gemara. He's kono Olam b'shra achas. He's able to acquire his place in the world to come because he does tshuva. So he finds a pathway to tshuva, but it's the last thing he does. But he manages to find that pathway. So that's the first aspect to it. And the second aspect is that there was a half and half with the makkos. The first 5 were because he sinned and he refused to let them out, and therefore, when it comes to the second 5, Hashem hardens his heart in order to publicize the greatness of his name, of Hashem's name. And Paro, so to speak, deserves that because he doesn't really want to save them now. He doesn't want to let them go at all, right? All he wants to do is simply be free of the makkos. He doesn't want to do anything for the sake of Hashem's name. So, okay, because we don't have so much more time. Just a few brief ideas. We'll see what we've got time for. There is a very interesting interplay throughout this parasha. Which we noticed previous years, between the Chartumim and Paro. These necromancers or magicians. What's going on? The whole way through they appear. They make their appearances all the time. They can do this, they can't do this, and they can do something and they can't do a thing. And when it's the kiddim, it's too small, so they can't do. There's a whole thing going on here. And the Ramban, in a few places in this week's parasha, explains to us a little bit more about what the dynamic is between them. In one place, he says, he brings the Ibn Ezra. He says something fascinating. The Chartumim say to Paro, Etzba Elokimi, right? It is the finger of Hashem. This is the kinnim. The Chazal say the kinnim were too small, so they couldn't use the magic to create the kinnim, right? And they say to Paro, Etzba Elokimi, it's the finger of God. What does that mean? What do those words mean? Because what is it? Does Paro believe in God? What does that mean? So Ibn Ezra says, just try and summarize what the Ramban says, brings down from Ibn Ezra, that they said to Paro that this makkah is not is something which is a makkah from God. Makas Elokimi, there is something in the heavenly spheres, and they refer to Elokim, which seems, as Ramban understands, or at least Ibn Ezra understands it, it seems to refer to the Creator. Because Paro didn't deny the existence of the creation of the world. It made a fascinating thing. He didn't deny the existence of the Creator with a capital C. Rak Hashem shehizkelo Moshe. That's what he says. Mi Hashem. He doesn't recognize that the Hashem, as we refer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? He recognizes that he is the creator of the world, but he thinks that's distant and removed, and maybe there's to do with the star signs, the influence they have, but not in Hashem. And that's what he denies. And therefore he says, and that's why he says Hashem hardens his heart, right? And he says that's why they say Etzba Elokimhi, they don't say Etzba Hashemhi, like Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? Etzba Elokimhi is something, there's a recognition there. There's a recognition that, yes, there's an influence going on in heaven, right? But it's not that they agree, right? Oh, wow, now we know that Hashem is involved, he's going to save the people. No, that's not what it means, right? And he says, and that's how it is. But the Ramban disagrees. The Ramban says, Ki amikra lo yikra etzba Elokim, rak hamaka habo mi'ito ba'onish tikra yad Hashem. He says that the instant, the happening itself is not cool, or something that happens by chance, because that was what they were trying to say. They were trying to say this is something which is chanced on Egypt because the stars are aligned in a certain way. Basically, you've got bad luck. That was what they were trying to say. That's how the Ibn Ezra seems to understand it. And the Ramban disagrees. The Ramban says that you don't use the words Etzba Elokim if it's chance, the finger of Hashem. And he says that this phrase is specific to something that's coming as a result of punishment. That's why it says Yad Hashem, Etzba Elokim, right? And he brings psukim to support this. Vaya Yisrael es hayod hagadola. So these ideas of the hand of Hashem, right? The ideas of the hand of Hashem being involved, or the finger of Hashem. You understand? These ideas. This is specific, right? This is specific when we're talking about something where there is an element of onesh, of punishment involved. And therefore he says that the explanation is as follows. Kibarosa Chartumim, this is the third paragraph. When the Chartumim saw, when they saw Shelo Yochlu, they couldn't produce the lice themselves. They then admitted and agreed that it was from Hashem. He says, you will not see the appearance of these wizards and whatever they were, and these magicians from this point onwards. Because Paro doesn't want to see them again. Because they have, is where he disagrees with Ibn Ezra. You understand? Ibn Ezra says, when they say Etzba Elokim, they're saying Elokim, because they're trying to say, Paro, listen, don't think that we think that their Hashem is involved, right? It's your bad luck, right? It's your bad luck. There's some stars misaligned or whatever, and you suffered. Says the Ramban, no, disagrees with Ibn Ezra. He says, no, they were actually agreeing and admitting this to come a punishment on Egypt as a result of their actions, right? But maybe because they were afraid of Paro, so they reduced it. You understand? So they had to admit that this was from Hashem. And they said that to Paro. And Paro is devastated by that, or at least he doesn't want to see them again. He's disgraced, they're in disgrace. But even they can't admit it fully. Do you understand? They say Etzba Elokim, it's just a finger, not the full hand, not the full strength, right? He says, you will find that Paro and his servants will not use the Shem HaMiyuchad, the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, except if they're speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moshe or the Bnei Yisrael use that name of Hashem. But between themselves, so to speak, they use the name Elokim. It's very significant, the difference in the name Yud Kei Vav Kei and the name Elokim. It's very significant. The Yud Kei Vav Kei is the Shem Hashem, the Shem HaEtzem, the actual name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Elokim, which we can translate as as like a judge, for example. It's used in Parashat Mishpatim. Right? It talks about it uses that word in the context of a judge. There's a big difference between the two. One of the classic examples which I mentioned before, which I find is the most incredible insight from Moshe Shapiro, is the idea that the absence of the Shem Hashem, the Shem Havaya, the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Elata Parshias in Bereshis. You aware of this? So the last time you find the word name Yud Kei Vav Kei, right, is when Yosef goes to Mitzrayim. V'choil asher hu oseh, Hashem matzliach b'yodai. Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? Hashem, as in Yud spelled out Yud Kei Vav Kei, makes him successful. That means to say, whatever he did, he was in the house, he's Baveis Adonov HaMitzri, and then he's in the prison. I can't remember which one it is. Maybe I don't know whether that name is in the before he goes to prison or afterwards. Either way, that's the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. You know when the next time the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is in the Torah? You can look through the rest of Vayeshev, the whole of Miketz, the whole of Vayigash, and right into the bracha of Don. And Yaakov gives to the bracha of Don, you will not find once the name Yud Kei Vav Kei in the Torah. Only Elokim. Many times Elokim, but not Yud Kei Vav Kei. Why? Because I think Moshe Shapiro explains this, because it was the depths of their descent into godless, into exile. So in exile, there is hest upon him. There's the concealment of Hashem's face. So there isn't that it's difficult to fathom why the suffering is happening, and that's represented in the Torah in an unbelievable way by the fact that the name Elokim is not Yud Kei Vav Kei. And what brings it back? L'shuascha kivisi Hashem. When Yaakov Avinu says, "I hope to your salvation, Hashem," it's in the bracha of Don. It's a reference to Shimshon. According to Rashi, those words, "L'shuascha kivisi Hashem," is a reference to when Shimshon, in those last moments of his life, you know the story, and he's there, and they tie him between the pillars, and they've gouged out his eyes. And what does he say? Zachreni no, b'chazkeni no achapam hazeh. It's not right. Zachreni no achapam hazeh Elokim, right? Help me this time. Give me strength once more. And he breaks the pillars, and the whole thing falls down. And he kills more in his death of the Pelishtim than he killed us in the whole life, right? And that is l'shuascha kivisi Hashem. He cries out to Hashem, I only have you, Hashem. And that connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be in the darkest place. Can be in the darkest place. If you can say l'shuascha kivisi Hashem, it's only you, Eino Milvadoi, right? Then it can bring the person out from the depths of despair. And that is what brings the name Yud Kei Vav Kei back, and it ties beautifully with how we started. You understand? What did we say about V'lo shomu el Moshe mikotz haruach, right? They couldn't hear it. So the question is, what do you do? What do you do? Someone's in a place of kotz haruach. They can't hear anything. They believe, they have emunah, but they're not in a place where they can hear. You understand? So one approach, one way is if the person if we can help a person to open their hearts in tefillah, to say, Eino milvado, Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm in a place where there's nothing. I only have you. I only have you. It's a very special thing. It's incredibly hard to do it, but a person can open their heart. There's nothing else apart from Kadosh Baruch Hu. That creates the Knesset L'shuascha kivisi Hashem, and that brings the Shem Hashem, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. It brings it back into the person's life, right? And that's what the Paroi and the Chartumim can't do, because they're so far away. They recognize there's something funny going on. They recognize the existence of a creator, according to Ibn Ezra, of a Borei. They say Elokim, but they would never say, can't say Yud Kei Vav Kei unless they're in a conversation with Vaeira Rabbi, right? And I know we're a few minutes over, just one very brief final idea. I mean, we can stay afterwards, don't we? But I'm just talking to the those in London. Just very briefly, Perek Tes Posuk Chov Zayin. Just one last idea. It's a very brief Ramban. It's just very brief, just literally, I think maybe 2 lines. 1 second. Chov Zayin. Yeah. What is the Chatosi Hapam, when it comes to the Makkah of Borot, Vayishlach Paroi, Vayikra Moshe Aaron, he calls to Moshe and Aaron, Vayoma Aleim Chatosi Hapam, and he says to them, I have sinned this time. Chatosi Hapam, Hashem Atzadik, Vani Yomi Roshai. Hashem is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. And he says those words, Chatosi Hapam. And the Ramban makes such a powerful connection. Biura, he says. The explanation is, Hapam Oidel Hashem. This time I will admit to Hashem, Ki chotosi loy, that I've sinned to him, v'hu atzadik, and he is righteous, v'ani v'ami haroshoim, and I and my people are wicked, shemoradnu bidvoroi, because we've rebelled against him, me'oz va'ad ota, from then until now. So this is a paradox. Hapam, right? Hapam, chotosi hapam. Really, that means I have sinned once, like now. Chotosi, this time I've sinned. Yeah, this time I've sinned. Yeah. It says also, we mentioned Shimshon before, it says, the Ruach Hashem ischil lefa'amoy b'machane dan. That's what it says in Shoftim, right? You know what it means? The Ruach Hashem began to beat within him in the Machane Dan, and he has this connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he's the shofet and everything else, right? Yeah. So the idea is, Pa'amoin is like a bell, right? Yeah, it's a bell. It rings. It's once. It's a one-off thing. That's the word. It's the same word, right? Pa'am, once. But the Ramban tells us no. Chotosi hapam means that this one moment gives me a revelation on everything that's gone previously. And what does it make us think of? Who else uses very closely the same thing, same phrase, hapam? Good question. Can answer in London as well. Who says hapam?
No.
Yes, brilliant. Our host, Jonathan Rees, brilliant, absolutely. Leah says, hapam oides Hashem, right? Leah says when she gives birth to Yehuda, hapam, this time oides Hashem, I will thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hapam oides Hashem. Leah has such Toras. Leah has the most incredible Toras. She's rejected. It's you can't understand where Leah comes from. Yeah. She calls her son Reuven because and Hashem has seen my affliction, right? She's anochi because I'm hated, and she's hapam oides Hashem. She's able to see, and she thanks HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not just hapam, like for this moment, but it's a revelation on everything that's gone before. You understand? Same idea. In this sense, it's Paro realizing that he sinned, right? The whole spectrum of the time he's been involved in this affair. And Leah is able to say, hapam oides Hashem. This moment, this revelation, this time when I say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is not just now. I'm not just thanking Hashem now. I'm thanking Hashem for everything, for the difficult times and the good times. And it's a revelation of my whole life. It's a life of giving thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a beautiful, beautiful insight, right? That if we can take those moments in our lives when Hashem shows us that the reason to give thanks, if we can focus on that moment, what it does is when we genuinely thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the gift He's given us, it reveals everything else in our lives as well. That was all part of the thanks, and we have an ability then to give Vaeira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on everything that's gone before us, right? I think that's where this Ramban ties beautifully with that pasuk. I think that's what the Ramban is trying to bring out from here. Paro, as we know, sadly, does not. This doesn't end here. It doesn't. He doesn't stop here and say that's it, right? And that's it. It slides down here. But at the end of the day, I think this is what the Ramban is bringing out. So, for those of us who joined us in London, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to carry on here with the Bochum here, but it's lovely to be able to have this connection. We'll continue.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Good night. Good Shabbos.
Pleasure. Have a lovely Shabbos. Have a lovely Shabbos.
Shabbos to everybody. Shabbos.
Okay. Take care. Bye.